Hi, everybody. So as you can see, our Google Classroom is going to be set up a little different for our next unit, which is on the executive branch. We're going to be going over that from January 7th to January 26th, and all the work is going to be posted underneath it instead of divided into weeks like it's previously been. I want you to take a look. We have our Unit 5 study notes for students. Okay, I listened to y'all. Y'all said y'all wanted a study guide. So this is going to be a Google Doc that has all of the important information. It's like a notes page that I made for you. That's important for our first assignment for January 7th and January 8th, which is going to be our warm-up. So you'll go to warm-up, Jan 7th to Jan 8th, and you'll see that it's a question. Go, using the posted study guide / notes, what are the main powers of the executive? You can view the question. Remember, your screen's going to look a little bit different, but we're going to use our study notes to answer what are the main powers of the executive. So it's going to be at the very top. It says the executive branch is headed by the President of the United States, the Chief Executive Officer of the nation. They execute the laws of the land, prepares the annual budget for congressional action, appoint cabinet officers, ambassadors, and federal judges, oversees executive agencies and departments. So that is what you'd use to answer this question. Now, after we do our warm-up on January 7th and January 8th, we're going to do our PowerPoint, which I've attached here as well. We'll click on it, and I'm going to walk you through it so you have this information for our discussion question. So, Unit 5, the executive branch. The Constitution of the United States defines the structure and powers of the national government. The powers held by government are divided between the national government in Washington, D.C., and the governments of the 50 states. Now in the federal government, we have the legislative, executive, and judicial powers of the national government are distributed among 3 distinct and independent branches of government. The legislative powers belong to the legislature, which includes Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. They make the laws. The executive powers go to the executive, which is the president, but also includes those government departments and agencies like the Department of Education and the FBI. It enforces the laws. Then we have the judiciary, which holds the judicial powers of the national government. It includes the Supreme Court and other federal courts. It interprets the laws. So to interpret the law, first somebody must accuse the law of being unjust. Like when a student argues that their First Amendment rights are being infringed upon at school or something. The executive branch is headed by the president. It includes government agencies and departments. The Department of Education, Homeland Security, all of those. They're all going to fall under the executive branch, which is headed by the president. So the executive branch executes the laws of the land. This is done through various government agencies and departments. For example, the laws for schools are enforced through the Department of Education. The executive branch prepares the annual budget for congressional approval. So the executive branch, the president and his advisors, they write up the budget. They're like, this is what we want to spend our money on, how we're going to fund the government, and then they submit it to Congress for approval. The executive branch appoints cabinet members like the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury. Ambassadors, they're the people, the main points of contact in other countries, like the ambassador to England, the ambassador to France. And federal judges, like Supreme Court justices. There are a bunch of other little ones, but those are the three main that you need to remember. That the executive branch appoints cabinet members, ambassadors, and federal judges. The executive makes their pick, and then they must be confirmed or approved by the Senate. It's a part of that separation of powers. And then finally, the executive branch oversees executive agencies and departments, like the Department of Education, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State. These departments allow the executive branch to enforce laws. That's our notes for today, so we're going to go back to our classwork. Now that we have that, we're going to do our discussion question. Since we talked about presidential powers today, do you think there are any presidents that overstepped or abused their powers? Who were they? Now you can use Google if you don't have an answer. Be prepared to share your answer. So let's do a simple Google search. Presidents that overstepped their power. Now, power and the presidency. So if you don't know, Smithsonian Magazine is a pretty reputable source. So that would be a good one. And then we have harvard.edu. So let's go to Harvard. EDUs and most.coms. You have to think about the bias in what you're doing and what you're reading so you can be savvy. And then read through anyone you like. Doesn't have to be, just skim it. Okay, so during the Great Depression, for example, FDR's wide-ranging New Deal programs designed to improve consumer confidence and support workers also strengthened his ability to regulate the economy. And just sort of see if you can find a clear example of a president overstepping their power or something you think is an overstepping of power. For example, the one I like to talk about is Jefferson overstep the Louisiana Purchase. Now it might be easier for you to think of a president that you know about, or our current president, if you so desire, or a more recent president. There's going to be more information on that, but this isn't meant to be a hard question. So, as it says, on October 20th, 1803, the Senate ratified a treaty with France promoted by President Thomas Jefferson that doubled the size of the United States. But was Jefferson empowered to make that $15 million deal under the Constitution? The land involved 830,000 square miles. It would eventually include 15 states. So, and it says, Jefferson considered a constitutional amendment the only way to conclude the deal with France because he thought he was overstepping his boundaries. And that's just a quick question. You can make it real simple. Just do your discussion question, and we're going to share it and talk about it in class. Then our last thing for January 7th and January 8th is going to be a ReadWorks assignment. You'll go to it, read it, answer the questions, and then submit it. That's all we're doing for January 7th and January 8th.